and welcome to another episode of All Things Service Podcast with your host, Nick Lambert. I, of course, am Nick Lambert, and today I am sporting a little bit of a duo shirt. It's kind of hard to see, but it is Ghostbusters, and it is also mixed with the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland. It's one of my favorite rides there, and I love the Ghostbusters. So when I saw this shirt, I was like, I gotta have it. It's me. It's the 80s. It's nostalgia. That's what I like. So I appreciate you joining us today. If you like us, if you like what you hear, please hit subscribe. It is so important for us to have those followers. And of course, you can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and on YouTube. So today I have a really exciting guest, and this is a little bit different than some of my podcasts. I'm actually bringing on a guest I don't know a lot about, but I see a lot about her, and that makes me really excited. So today my guest is Heather Ohs. Heather is a fantastic person. I've had a few conversations with her, followed her on social media. She is Montana made. She is a wife, mother of 2 teenage girls. She loves to talk. She doesn't run fast. Neither do I. I actually hate running. She loves rural life and is a big philanthropist. And I'm just looking forward to break in today. So we're going to bring her on. Welcome to the show, Heather. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much for having me. And I feel sheepish. I have a boring shirt.
Oh, that's
Great.
okay.
I'm just basic.
I don't think it's boring at all. For me, it's always funny because when I come on this podcast, one of the things that I like to do is I like people to see my personality a little bit.
You bet.
And so I'm always like, okay, have I wore that shirt yet or not wore that shirt? And so I have probably 100 of these different shirts, but my wife's like, at some point you're going to probably have to buy new shirts. So, but you fit right in. I love the earrings. I love the colors because you talk about being rural Montana. And to me, your office that you're sitting in.
Yeah. Right. This is pretty rural. Like
The
as I
cowboy
said
hat
before
on the wall. It's just, I love it.
Yeah.
It speaks rural Montana, which a lot of people are changing course in life, and that's something that you did a little bit about. For years you did live in the big city, and then you decided to give up the big city and move into a little bit more of a actually probably a lot more of a rural community. And
a lot more.
So you lived in Billings for quite a while, is that correct?
That's right. I was in Billings for 20 years. I got to see a lot of the remarkable changes and investments in that community. I moved there in the late 90s after I graduated from the University of Montana. And I still remember having the landline phone conversation with my mom. And she was like, are you sure you really, as a single woman, want to go to Billings? Like, isn't it dangerous? I didn't even think of, I was like, what?
Dangerous. I mean, downtown Denver is dangerous, not Billings.
Right. And you got to watch the evolution of Montana Avenue and those side streets just become prolific with arts and culture and restaurants and living spaces. And I built a life with some remarkable, friends and family and organizations there. And so I actually met my husband in Billings, and we started our family and spent, many of those formative years with our girls there. But my husband, and I knew this when I met him, was a down home Montana boy from the Pony Harrison area. And he had a dream to always bring what, would become his family back to this area. So I think on a date, I sheepishly was like, yeah, I'd be open to that. Like never thinking that would be a reality.
Right.
And one day he looks at me and he's like, so, we're going to move, or are we going to do this? And Nick, to your point, the timing was just right. It was really a time, where we had raised our kids through middle school, and we started looking at like, what does that next chapter of life look for us?
Yes.
And we came back to Harrison and Pony to give our kids, some uncomfortable experiences in the sense that they weren't used to. Like, you're going to have to be around cattle, and you're going to have to pass combines, and you're going to have to figure out, like, you don't have to do roundabouts and four-way stops anymore, but you may have to deal with farm equipment or a loose cow on the road. And girls, it's going to be fun and unpredictable. And that has like borne out in everything. It has been fun and unpredictable.
I love that. I've seen it all over where people are trading in the big city life to go into the smaller rural communities. We see it in Montana, especially, right around COVID. A
Yeah.
lot of people from California and other states were moving into Montana, and some of them were opting for some of the smaller towns because they're used to an hour and a half to 2 hour drive times. So for them, they're like, hey, I can live in Absaroka or I can live in Columbus and still go to Billings every day because that's way less of a, life than I
Yes.
used to live before. So, that's fantastic. I, on the other hand, went the opposite way. We traded in our small
Right.
time life for a big town. We're outside of Dallas about an hour. It's a smaller community around here too. So not as
Yeah.
much as what you would get in Pony and some of those other places, but still, it's a different world, and we wanted our kids to be exposed to some different things,
Yeah.
and it's awesome that we have those opportunities and those
Right.
options to be able to do that. So, um,
Yeah. I think there's a lot of just like, post COVID, the way we work and the way we build community has changed so much. And so this is my bedroom's over here, but I'm in a wood cabin and it's a loft. And all I really need in order to do what I do and connect is Wi-Fi. And that's something, we can all access, for the
yeah.
most part in Montana. And that allows me to, dial in, stay connected. And, I may not like, in terms of what I wear and pick out every day, I don't have to worry about it because the only person seeing me is usually a cow. I might pass like, a farmer and I do the like nod. They're
Yep.
never going to remember what I'm wearing. So I just try to
No.
remember if I'm on screen, like, did I wear that yesterday? So my wardrobe budget has gone down dramatically, which makes life, in that way even simpler too.
Yeah, it's trading in a busier lifestyle for a
Yeah.
simpler lifestyle, and we definitely traded in a busier lifestyle for a simpler lifestyle, but we're doing it in a bigger city just because the opportunities we wanted our kids to have were things that are a little bit harder to find in Montana. So,
You
but
bet.
I love Montana. I love the area you're in. We've had a conversation before. My best friend for about 10 years of my life, who was like a brother to me, passed away. No, going on. What is it? Boy, I'm aging myself here. It's 2000. So 16 years ago, this month
Yeah.
passed away, and he's actually buried up in Ennis. And I love that whole area in just that whole area between Bozeman, Butte, and the southern part of Montana.
Yeah. It's something
Um,
special.
Oh, it really is. And my wife and I, we have, she's a beach person. I
Yeah.
love the mountains. I love the beach too.
Yeah.
But
Me too.
yeah, I think everybody to an extent does. But my goal one day is to return and at least have a place, maybe a smaller place up around the island park, going up to even the back road up to Innis area. Just have a smaller place up in the mountains there. I could live in Island Park. I would have to be single. My wife would not put up with that much snow. So
You just have to be bi-coastal. You'll have to, your marriage, you'll go see her, during the winters or, the
yeah,
non-enjoyable
exactly.
seasons, if you will, because we get all the seasons out here. It's what, we're on the cusp of May today, and we had snow earlier this week. I mean, it's wild. And
It's
that's part
wild.
of what I love is having those four seasons. But don't get me wrong, I plan to escape a lot of winters, spend those either internationally or like on the beaches. And that's something I'm planning and preparing our family for so that we have that as well.
That's great, and making plans to be able to do stuff like that. I feel like life is more over the last 3 years. I've really felt like life is more about the time that you have with people and making memories with them and doing things with them. And so I see you doing that, and that's fantastic. I also see you are busy. So your kids, do they go to Pony? Is the school in Pony?
So there's a school 10
Okay.
miles straight down the road, Pony Road, and it's called Harrison School. So it
Okay.
serves, kind of a region, if you will, kids from Norris, Cardwell, Harrison Pony attend there. It's a K-12. And it's
Okay.
just as quaint and wonderful as you probably are imagining. And my husband went to school there, and his four
Oh,
siblings went to school there. And our girls attended there last year, but we made this decision this year. They now go to Manhattan Christian School, which is an hour commute each way for them.
yep.
So it's not only a financial, but it's a time investment. But because of some values and things that are critical in how our family orchestrates life, that was a better fit for them. But we're still connected to the school here and know that it really, truly, a school in a town this small is really the heartbeat and it is the gathering point for all good things. So,
So do you you go to a lot of these events? Do you go to like the basketball games, the football games, all the
oh
things?
goodness, there is nothing like Class C sports. It is, you know, I grew up in Great Falls, so we are a
Okay.
double A. I
Yeah,
played
double A.
sports, and you know, there's a great energy there. Don't get me wrong. Like I think our families and parents like supported us all so well. But Class C is a whole different level. Like literally towns close
I was gonna say
when
they shut down
they
and for
shut
the
down.
game.
And the combines lead out the parade and the semis. And
Of the
it's the kindergartners are high fiving their class, you know, the upperclassmen as they walk out to join the bus. And last year, our boys in Harrison went to state for basketball for the first time in over 100 years. And that, to
Oh.
be part of that and witness that, I mean, it feels like something that, you know, like Disney makes movies about that you watch on those feel good shows.
Yeah, it's a feel
Um,
good movie.
it's a feel good movie. And I think it paints the realistic portrayal because I want people to understand this no matter where you choose to live, urban, rural, developed, undeveloped. Opportunities, if you use the lens of abundance, are everywhere, right? We
Mhm.
can create and craft a life for ourselves or those that we love really anywhere. We just have to be curious and open to it. And I think our girls are learning, okay, maybe there's no Starbucks or Target. Yes, right? But
Right.
maybe there's something else that's just as
Yeah.
equally as good that gives me these feel good experiences or leads me to something. And it creates, you know, them having to be really creative in how
Mhm.
they approach and get things done.
Yep.
Um, but it's not a this or that, right? I think it's an and. Like you
Yeah.
can have, we just configure life differently, just like your family's doing.
Yeah.
And so I think like witnessing and working and doing life alongside people who have been in a rural environment for a long time has given me a deeper appreciation for all that they have created and maintained in these communities.
Yes, I
Yeah,
totally agree with you. I I was born in Billings and then we moved to Rappeljay, Montana and lived there for probably 3 or 4 years. My mom was a teacher starting out. And then we ended up moving to New Mexico. We lived in a town outside of Gallup, New Mexico. So we were literally on the reservation, like right on the border of the
sure.
reservation, and very, very small community. And the amount of friends that I gained in that community were amazing. Most of them were Native American, but
Sure.
what was cool is I'm white, and white people don't get invited to do a lot of the things like the traditions and the powwows and
Sure.
some of the other stuff. And yet I had friends saying, "Hey, can we?" The Navajo word for white man is Bilagana, so they would say, "Hey, can we bring the Bilagana kid and have him come with us?" And so I got to go to powwows. I got to do a lot of traditional stuff that a lot of white people don't ever have the opportunity to do. And what was cool is a few years ago, I was able to go back and take my family, and some of the friends that I have met
Aw,
are still living there, and they're living in hogans and living in some things. And we really got to dive into the heritage and some of the history with that. And it was eye
sure.
opening for my kids because you're right. There is no Target. There is no Starbucks. And the kids are like, what is this? But they were so fascinated with the way of life because they still haul their water. They
Yeah.
still or they have a well, or they
Yeah.
still use livestock. It's just a different style of life. They have internet. That's
Yeah. Yeah.
that's needed. It's just
Well, to your point, I never, if you would have said a year ago, you know, a year or two ago when we moved here, that my oldest daughter would have been in a quinceañera, you know, that's the celebration of a young Hispanic woman turning
yeah,
15. Okay, I just couldn't conceptualize that. And yet, there are families here. And
their
Bria
families do that.
spent 6 months learning the traditions, learning the rich heritage of why that's important and what that is symbolic of, and then got to celebrate with her classmate and friends, you know, in that formal dress and the music and the food and the family.
The
And
food.
that is something we would have never experienced in Billings. And it is
No,
something that I will cherish and hold forever. And I know she will too.
I was
Her
just
dress
gonna
is so
say
wrapped up.
yes, yes, she will too. So you have two girls,
Yeah,
15 and 17.
that's right.
What
Hence the gray hair.
Well, yeah, I have a 20-year-old and I just spent 3 days in a vehicle with her, and so the fact that I'm not completely gray after that, yeah, that's
It's a
but
testament to your good relationship and probably a temperament, Nick.
yes, exactly. um, so two girls though, they into sports. What do they do? You said you're going to Manhattan Christian,
That's
so do
right.
they play volleyball, basketball,
Yeah,
music?
great question. They're runners. They're built to run.
They're
They've
built
got
to run.
long legs and mental stamina. I mean, really, they enjoy, I would say, pain.
Oh my
Like
gosh.
runners are a truly different breed long distance. So
Oh yeah,
both
yeah.
girls participated in cross country this year.
Nice.
The girls team took third for state, and our oldest daughter Bria was in the top 15 for Class C. So that was an
I
honor. She was on
love
the
it. That is
podium.
so amazing.
And then the oldest is running track this spring. Younger sissy said, no thanks. I've ran, I'll run one season, but I don't need to continue that. But they both really enjoy skiing. And I think that
Oh,
is just an
fun,
asset
fun.
that Montana has, right? We've
Oh, for
got,
sure.
when we lived in Billings, Red Lodge was just, an hour
On
offshoot
away.
from us.
Yep.
And now we're surrounded by Big Sky, Bridger, Discovery, Showdown, the hill I grew up on. And
Oh,
man, these girls, if they could, they'd probably opt to, miss school during the weekdays to be on those fresh powder days.
oh,
Um, but they're involved. They're involved with their church. They went on a choir trip, and actually, again, small world. They went to New Mexico
oh
to an
wow.
Indian reservation, to a Christian school there, and had experiences similar to what you described. But then along the way, singing in various, churches, nursing homes, schools, and really just spreading the light and the love of the gospel and doing it through music. And that really brought them back home to us more joy filled and I think more appreciative of the world and their role in it. And yeah, and then in terms of getting a job, you can imagine. I mean, again, without a Starbucks or a Target, where do kids out here work? And that is the creativity of it. They spend a lot of time baking and selling their baked goods and helping neighbors, elderly neighbors that may need something because they're young and strong and they should be out there doing that. And um, but yeah, it really is fun to watch them figure out what they're interested in and how they want to go about it. And we spend nights and evenings on the paddleboard. We are lucky. We have two lakes and streams right by us.
Oh my goodness.
You can walk out in the fields. You can ride four-wheelers. All the things that my husband romanticized about and experienced as a child, truly, they now get to live out and do. Um, they're not doing a lot of the dangerous things he did, like lighting hay bales on fire and jumping in them and nonsense like that, because I'm a little more risk averse, Nick, and
Yeah,
I rein that
yeah.
in. But we let him tell those stories and then we temper what they go out and do. But
Yeah,
really,
use those stories of examples of things not to do.
what not to do. His footprints and his cousin's footprints are in the cement outside of the bank building, the historic bank building here when they were little, after the concrete was poured. Of course, what does any kid want to do? Walk right over and make their permanent mark. And so,
Oh, I
yeah,
love
I
it.
mean,
I
not only
love
has
it.
the Ohs family been here for now 2 generations, but Dave's footprints are going to live on in
For
along
generations and
for
generations.
generations, and his cousin Elizabeth's too.
That is that is really it's almost like Little House on the Prairie-ish, you
Yes.
know, it's the type of stuff that you would experience. You're going into that small town and then, hey, there's dad's footprints. There's,
Yeah.
there's our aunt's footprints or, that's I love that.
Yeah,
That's
and
so
the
great.
wild thing, Nick, is think about a high school because we've been to bigger high schools. My
Oh wow.
graduating class was 470 something in Great Falls, right? My husband's graduating class, he was one of 13. And on the walls in their high school, starting back from, I believe, the early 30s, there is a frame for each graduating class with the little heads, you know?
Oh
So you
yeah.
can look at every generation and you see these names replicated over and over, and you see the styles like the mullets and the flat tops and the various like clothing. And our kids got the biggest kick going, oh my gosh, there's my uncle and there's my nephew. And like just making, I mean, honestly, they're making fun of them because
They're
the
making fun of
styles,
them. Right,
yeah,
right.
the styles in the 80s were a little,
Yep. Yeah.
but every graduate from Harrison is hanging on display in the hallway, which is so cool.
That is such a that part of history, part of heritage, and the fact that the kids get to see that's
Yeah.
amazing. I
Yeah.
and it's like, half of these people that are there. So that's the fun part about it. It's generational. You can
It's
keep going back
generational.
and back and
Yeah.
looking at that.
Yeah. You can feel it.
No, I came from a class of 420 was my graduating class. I actually had a conversation with somebody the other day down here, and he was talking to me about Billings, and he says, "Well, it's a pretty big city, isn't it?" And I was like, "It's 120,000." And he says, "Wow, that's small." And I said, "Yeah, and it's the biggest city in Montana." And then we went on to talk about high school size, and he says, "Well, how big was your high school?" I said, "Well, there's 400 in my graduating class." He's like, "No, no, 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 no." He's like, "In your graduating class?" I said, "Yeah." He said, he was from I think Tennessee or Ohio. Anyways, 1,200 in his graduating class. And I'm like, wow, that my our whole school I don't even think was 1,200. And yet
That's
you have
bigger
this,
than this whole area, Nick. Like there's more cows than there
there's
are
more
people
cast
here.
than people. Yeah. So I'm going to shift a little bit here. You are into philanthropy.
That's
And
right.
you, yep, and you work for
Professionally.
professionally, and you work for Montana Community Foundation. For those out there, tell us a little bit about what a philanthropist does,
Yeah.
and how did you get into this? I'm really,
Yeah.
as I've seen you on social media and stuff. I'm like, I wonder how she ended up getting on this route that took her where she's at. So,
Yeah.
yeah, if you don't mind, share a little bit of that. What is philanthropy, and then how did you get involved with it?
Yeah. It's pretty, I don't know. It's a pretty remarkable story, right? So philanthropy is really the ability for a person to use their time, talents, and treasures to invest in causes, people, and concerns, things that they really are passionate about. And I get to help philanthropists steward it. In my own right, I give and invest and do those things, and our family does. But really, in my professional role with the Montana Community Foundation, that's my charge. Every morning I wake up and usually get in the car and go somewhere. But how that came to be, right? So I was a wide eyed girl from Great Falls, not sure what I wanted to do when I grew up, but I graduated and made a choice to go to the University of Montana. And I am so glad I did. That's a liberal arts college, which really looks at holistically developing us as leaders and stewards and being curious and I would say investing in our education, but investing in the capital, which is our state and humanity and all those things. And so I studied psychology and communications, thinking, going to become a guidance counselor in high school because I really had a tremendous high school experience. And then, I realized that probably wasn't going to pan out. So I thought, okay, I'm going to counsel people because at the heart of all of this, Nick, I love people.
Mm.
And then I realized you had to keep going to school and and my
Mhm.
dad was kind of like, hey, honey, it's time you like graduate and like go do, basically, it was like, go get a paycheck. Like instead of us paying, like, how about you start receiving?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
my mom and dad were extremely supportive of my educational pursuits, both financially, but also like in terms of supporting what it is I was exploring. And I was fortunate to go to school on scholarships and not have an economic burden when I came out. But so Nick, I came to Billings for the first time, big city. My mom's like, danger, danger. I'm thinking opportunity and single men, which that did lead to my husband. I was right
Sure.
there. And there was opportunity. And I ended up working for McKinsey River Pizza.
Oh,
Um,
oh,
yeah, right? Like
oh.
just a
Now
signature.
you're making me need to. I was just up in Montana. I think I need to fly back up there and hit that again.
Yeah.
Some of the best pizza. I love their
Some of the
pizza.
best pizza, people, and experiences. And so I started on the path to go to grad school to study public relations and communications. And I was working there to support my lifestyle of travel and, experiencing being a young 20-year-old. And it was at that time I took a part-time job while I was in grad school in waitressing for the National Multiple Sclerosis Society.
Hmm.
And basically, I didn't know anything about multiple sclerosis. It's still a mouthful to say, but
Mhm.
the job description was like working with people, asking for support, planning events, and really supporting a community of people that were living with what was not a very manageable chronic illness at that time. A lot of treatment drugs had not been approved by the FDA. And I thought, well, I know if that's what I want to do, but I guess that sounds fun. And what I didn't know, Nick, was that was the beginning and the exposure to a 25-year career in philanthropy,
Wow.
raising money for causes, helping to learn about planned gifts and endowments, really taking assets in Montana. Most of our wealth is in the land and in illiquid assets like cattle, businesses, S corps, and turning it into cash to allow people to give more, pay less on taxes, and give to the things they care about. And when you are sitting down and stewarding a family through these conversations and talking about legacy and talking about dreaming big, I don't even feel like it should be work. It, to me, is the greatest thing. I leave with goosebumps. Often I leave with mascara running down my face. I leave knowing our state is in really good hands. There are people here that care deeply about the values and aspects about Montana. And then I get to come back to my bedroom office and figure out how to make this all work for them. And it is truly an honor and privilege. And so, I mean, on a given day, for example, like yesterday, I was in Billings. Yesterday morning, I woke up, I was in Billings. I met with the Ronald McDonald House,
Okay.
which
Yep.
helps families, when their kiddos are either born prematurely or having a medical crisis. And we don't want to separate, especially rural families, from their child. And so I'm meeting with Ronald McDonald House, and we're talking about strategy ways to grow their endowment so that there's always a predictable income stream to serve those families and children when they need it the absolute most.
Yes.
And then that meeting wraps up, and I drive over to Billings Christian School. And
Oh, my
yeah,
kids
Billings
used to
Christian
go
School.
there.
So I'm sitting there, like I put the same kind of, there's a hat like this, but I'm wearing a different hat. And we're talking about their expansion of like athletics and sports in their campus because they're continuing to grow. And how do they build, funds that will support the maintenance and the staff and doing all the really awesome things the school has to offer. And then I drive back down the road to my house and I pass a couple farmer ranchers and I come home and I'm exposed to big dreams and big goals. And my job is to come up with solutions and ways to help support them to reach those. And no 2 days are the same and no conversations are the same. It's really a choose your own adventure. And it is entirely a distinct honor and privilege to be trusted with people's financial conversations
Oh
and
yeah.
what they want to do with it. And it's kept me in this game. I say game, but it's kept me in this industry for 25 years. And I could not imagine myself doing anything but this.
That's amazing. And you get exposed to all different people, all different
Mm,
walks, all different
yeah,
faiths,
I
everything.
get sometimes people think they know who the millionaires are here. And those are the ones that may have a public forward facing face. I know some of the ones that people have never met. And
Uh-huh.
those stories are the ones that cause my mascara to run. And the values and what they have done quietly in very, obscure ways to benefit and bless their communities and things that were going to happen. A lot of these are estate gifts. So people in their wills say,
Yep.
I want to leave 5% of what I have. Like, I want to bless my children. I want to bless, maybe my church or this. And it's going to happen when I pass. And I know what's coming. I may not live to see it, but I know what communities are going to be blessed with this big transfer of wealth that our state and quite frankly, the nation's on the cusp of. And that is, politics aside, all the global concerns aside, and I'm not minimizing them because those are really important
Oh, for
issues.
sure.
But philanthropy is one way, one thing we can control as individuals, and one thing we can give to really show our support and interest and get behind what we believe in. And people right now are really stepping up and doing a lot of giving while they're living. They don't want to wait till they die because they're like, right now, I want to make decisions that I think will benefit I don't just work in rural, but primarily I visit with a lot of rural folks to benefit the schools that need aging infrastructure, right? Our
Yep.
bodies are aging, but our schools are aging
They're
too. And
aging too. Yes.
yeah, we got to take care of that stuff.
I love that. I was when I was home last week, I was having a conversation with a good friend of mine, Heidi Williams. She runs with her sister Heather, Love and Sunshine. So Heidi has known me since I was
A
a
troublemaker? No,
Well, yeah,
I'm just
literally.
kidding. I
Yeah.
don't know
No,
if you
no,
are.
no, no. That's about the right time. It's about the right time. And then my mom had her kids, and I think even had one of Heather's kids. My mom was a kindergarten teacher, so so that's kind of how I met Heidi. But anyways, love Heidi, love Heather so much. They're just great people. Was having coffee with Heidi, and one of the things we were talking about is they were endowments and kind of how some of that stuff works. And I was familiar with it, but she was kind of diving in a little bit deeper, and that was my thought: is it's great that people are wanting to leave something behind when they pass. But you may have somebody who comes to you who's 70 years old and says, okay, I have $10 million and I'm going to leave 10% of that to this, but it's not going to be until I pass. It could be 30 years before that
That's
person
right.
passes. And so, and there's a lot of need for financial things now. And so, what Heidi and I were actually talking about is I said, I would, for me, and I get it. You get some really great tax benefits by doing, some of the
Yeah.
endowments and stuff. But at the same time, I'm like, you know what? I feel like God lays it on my heart to be somebody who gives now versus later. And don't get me wrong, I think you got to
Right.
have a great mixture of both. Because
It's
if you
both,
give
Nick. Yeah.
everything now, then it's like you have nothing to plan on having down the road.
Right.
But if you give get a good mixture of stuff, um and Heidi and I, we a lot of people don't know. I don't dive too much into my personal story, but there was a situation where we were on a road where we thought we were going to be able to actually do something similar to endowment or some other stuff, and that was one of the things I had a conversation with my tax attorney about. And I just said, I don't want to do an endowment. I want whoever I leave this money to, or whoever I decide to give right
Sure.
now to, I wanted to impact them right away. I said, now that doesn't mean that I wouldn't be willing to look at an endowment for years down the road, but I know organizations that need things now. And so
Right.
it's just great having those conversations and be able to really um, learn more about the differences and
Yeah.
how they affect,
Each person in
each
each
person
organization. And
basically. Yeah.
I say this, I feel like I'm a broken drum, but I always say it's a choose your own adventure, right? There is no one answer. I don't come in with any agenda because quite frankly, I need to understand what that organization needs or what that donor is trying to achieve or that family. And so, based on answers and conversations and questions, it really becomes like what makes sense and what is going to honor what it is you're trying to do in your family. And so, we work with donor advised funds, Nick, and that's a chance for the like my husband and I created a donor advised fund a few years ago. We feel really passionately about giving while we're living, but even more than that, we feel passionate and a responsibility that we want our girls to pick up that torch and feel the same blessing that comes with being generous. I position myself with open hands, right? Like things flow through us and we can hold those things real tight and keep them to ourselves, or we can open our hands and let what it is that we know, the wisdom we've gained through our experiences, some good and bad,
Yes.
we can let our network, we can open doors for others. And I'm really passionate about opening doors for women, especially young women that are
Yes.
trying to come up. I'll
Yes.
open doors for anyone, don't get
Yeah.
me wrong. But I really want, and I think it's just the heart of a mother. I want my girls to, I want others to open doors for them too, but
Yes.
also to take that money and know with abundance, if I let that flow, that there's going to be impacts and magnitudes that are multiplied, right? Instead of holding it here, releasing it. And, something that I think recently has really shifted. In fact, I'm like, okay, I'm 48 years old. I'm fully formed. My values, my beliefs I am not going to change. Well, God said, oh,
God's
girl,
like, no, no, no.
you have no idea what I'm going to hit you with.
Yep.
And it was twofold. And you know this, my father passed away on April
Yes.
12th.
Yes.
I got to walk out 5 weeks of life with him after his stroke. And so my soul was already wrestling, right? My mind and heart were tender and open. And a man came to me who's been mentoring me in some capacity, came to me and shared with me a book and an audio book called Die with Zero.
Oh
And
yeah.
I,
Yes.
and so it has literally flipped a switch in me and spun things around to really, when I've shared this with friends, they're like, I can't spend everything down to zero because what about, long term care and health and all that? And this author's not advocating it, but Nick, he's touching on what you just said. How do we balance planning for the future, but also enjoying today? And if we're only looking at our financial investment dividends and we're not looking at memory dividends and life
Yes.
experience dividends, what kind of life are we leading and
Yes.
living? And so I marched into my financial advisor's office this Tuesday and said, hey guys, I'm about to throw a wrench in everything. And I want to do, and I laid out a couple of things I really want to do. And I really want to do them, one, to honor my father's life, this incredible life that he lived and led that allows me to now do the same thing. And I want to encourage my girls and the people that I do life with in my Bible study and from college, my girls squad, to be like, ladies, what are we doing with what we have? How are we investing it in our communities?
Yes.
And how are we going out and living this bold life? And I don't mean like, oh, you have to go buy a yacht and I realize everyone's financial situation is different, but there are things we can do that don't cost anything, right? That are our time and our wisdom. And there's also some things that they don't have to be huge financial investments, but Nick, we will run out of time and we will run out of health. I hope we don't run out of money, but I hope we all consider, how do we use that money to serve and to bless and to reinvest in ourselves and others, again, with a mindset of like holding it out. And I guess this book, even though I've been exposed to these concepts until I heard Bill Perkins, I think that's his name, just really hit me with that. I was like, oh man. And then my dad's passing coinciding with it, taking out my longevity lifeline, trying to figure out my death date. That sounds morbid, right? But come on, we all have one.
We all have
And
one.
we
Yep.
all have one. And if we live like we're not going to die, that's reckless. But if we also live like we don't care if we die, that's reckless too. So, I mean, there's this balance, right?
Yep.
And I'm not saying the approach is right for everybody, but it really, in
for
terms
sure.
of working in philanthropy, is helping me say to some people, what would the impact of giving while you're living mean to you if you got to see some of these things and witness what happens
Yes.
using some of your money
Yes.
while you're here? We can plan for an estate gift later, but what would that look like? And oh man, the goosebumps and the tears.
I'm getting goosebumps with you talking about it. Seriously, I am. Because you are literally, and you do not know a lot about me, but you are going you are going in a direction, and I'm about ready to probably blow your mind with some stuff. But first of all,
Buckle up.
I love people that know me closely know that I am an extremely generous giver. Now, I always thought that my identity in Christ was being an extremely generous giver. And some things happened that changed my ability to give like I love to give. And that's been really hard to deal with and wrestle with. So it's like, okay, well, what is my identity then? What are my gifts? What are my tools? But a part of that giving is I loved doing it anonymously. I love to know that, okay, I just heard that that couple over there was struggling. They weren't going to be able to make a mortgage payment, and anonymously the mortgage payment gets paid.
Yeah.
I don't want credit for it.
Yeah.
When I die and I walk through the gates of heaven, my credit is going to be, well done, good, faithful servant. That's what I want. Oh man, I'm getting emotional just talking about it.
Yeah,
But
I know. I just got I got the goosies too.
Yeah, but that's what's important to me. And so a lot of people don't know this, but I had I had a lot of wealth, a lot of assets, a lot of big living stuff. And I lost my dad unexpectedly about 2.5 years ago. And it shook me to my core. I was so close with my father, did so much with my dad. And honestly, I mean, I literally thought about this like a month before losing him, that, oh, I got at least, dad's about 71, 70, almost 71. I had at least another 10 to 15 years with him, and all that's going through your mind, and then boom, he's gone. And so over the course of the last few years, God's taken me on one heck of a journey. And it started with reading a book. The founder of Hobby Lobby, his name is David Green, and he had a book called Leadership Not by the Book. And I'm literally on vacation in Minneapolis Mall, going through one of those quick convenience stores, and this book, it just catches my gaze. And I'm like,
it's right there.
Yeah. So I'm like, I'm going to read it. So I picked it up and I started reading it. And like a lot of things that happened with me after my father died, I had really a hard ability to finish stuff. And I
Oh,
put the book down, did not finish it. I got about halfway through it. And but there were some core themes with it that I agreed on. And one of the things that I actually went back through and I did read it on my trip, actually moving down to Texas this last summer. I actually read it, audiobooked it, and
yeah.
oh man, it just hit me harder and deeper because my wife and I, we made the decision about a year ago, that maybe a year and a half ago, that we wanted lifestyle changes. And part of those lifestyle changes were having best opportunities for our kids to succeed in faith-based schools, having opportunities for our family that we didn't currently have, and giving up some of the assets. We decided to take some of our stuff and really condense our lifestyle down to where it's less stressful for me, it's less stressful for my family. We lower, you lower your bills, you don't have to,
Yeah.
you don't have to worry about stuff as much. And through that, God has been like, okay, you're going somewhere. And that's been the hard thing for me to be like where I'm gonna go. But so David Green talks about the secret sauce, and his secret sauce was being a generous giver. And he contributes Hobby Lobby's amazing growth even through COVID. I
Sure.
mean, the stuff that you read in the book about stuff that happened in COVID, remarkable. And he attributes it, number one, his faith in God and being a generous giver. And so that already kind of lined up with who I was, because even though I had these assets, I still was a generous giver. But I felt like God was putting on my heart, you know what? It's not about the stuff. It's about the memories. It's about the experiences. And I remember when I was at his funeral, and I got to say some words. And one of the things I said is, I wasn't able to do a lot. My family didn't have a lot growing up. My parents struggled. They were, on welfare at one point. My dad was told he was stupid and by teachers and would never accomplish
Sure.
anything. He actually went back to school, got his counseling degree. So kind of like you, love to help people, love to counsel people. Yeah, big heart. And he was like the family counselor when there were, even as adults, when my sisters
Yeah.
and I would get going at each other, my dad would be the peacemaker. So, but the thing that uh we didn't have a lot. And so I was able to take and do a lot of things with my dad that we were never able to afford to do. Going to a professional baseball game, going to a Vikings game. At the time I was a Cowboys fan, my dad was a Vikings fan. We got to go to a couple games together. And those memories, those things that fishing, just stuff like that, just make memories with my dad. That's what it was. That's what it was all about. And so not just with my dad, my mom too. They dreamed about going on an Alaskan cruise, and my sisters and I, we pitched in and we all took them on an Alaskan cruise, 7 or 8 years about. So it's just, we were able to do some things with my parents that they were never able to do with me, but those are all part of the memories. And so where I'm going with this is, I told you when we were starting the podcast before we hit record, I told you that the podcast name is going to be changing soon, and it's going to be going from All Things Service Podcast. One, it just kind of it's an emphasis on the service industry, but we're changing the name. It's going to be called Sunday Not Someday. And that is a new lifestyle brand that I am in the process of working on and launching. And part of Sunday Not Someday is helping leaders, helping business owners, small business owners get out of their own way, scale businesses, learn how to manage time between business and family, be there for their family, and also challenging them like Hobby Lobby, David Green, to be generous givers. And that is one of the big things of my mission statement, is to challenge people to be generous givers and to give while they can when they're alive and see how their funds impacted. Because to me, Heather, there are few greater feelings in the world when I give something anonymously
Yeah.
and you watch from a distance how it impacts somebody,
You bet.
and you're just like, the feeling I get, because I'm like, you know what? God laid it on my heart to do this. I did it, and
Yeah.
I feel so good about doing it. And And I don't get the credit for that. And I'm
right?
fine with it. I'm fine with
Yeah.
it. That's like the best part
But
is
you get the
it's
joy from it.
I
You
get the
know,
joy from it. It's not, and
there is
that's why I
intrinsic
do it.
joy.
And that's why I do it is it's the joy. It's how it makes me feel. And so when you're sitting here talking about people challenging people to give more and give generously now, that's my whole lifestyle brand that we're getting ready to launch later this
Yeah.
summer is based off of that giving, getting people to give generously. And you know, my company in Billings, we did some amazing things over 15 years. Well, I was actually in business almost 20 years, but for 15 years we did some amazing things, built great relationships, and we helped a lot of people, and we gave generously. And I truly believe when I'm reading Dave Green's words from the book, you know, saying that he believes their success was because of that. I believe our success was because of that. And I do not believe you can outgive God. I just don't. That doesn't mean
Amen
that
to
doesn't
that.
mean Heather, if you go and write a check for $10,000, God's going to bless you and you're going to have another check coming in for 15,000. It doesn't mean that.
Right.
But
No.
I believe that God blesses you with wisdom. He blesses you
Yep.
with health. He blesses you with finances, and he makes ways when things don't ever seem possible that ways would be made. And then you can look back and you can say, "Huh,
Huh, yep.
I didn't know what was going on. I'm sorry
Yeah.
for even questioning you, but look at where we are now." And so,
And that's wisdom and longevity. And that's, I
yes.
think, also something that we now have, right, Nick? Like
Mhm.
that is a gift and an asset. It's intangible, right? You can't like take it and pass it to
No.
somebody like in a box, but through our time, we can do that.
Yes.
And through our investment in mentoring others and thinking about this next wave of young leaders that will come up, they need people to pour into them, right? To take a full cup and just let them know, like, you are doing important work, you are creating.
Yes.
Entrepreneurs need pats on the back, right? They need like a hot cup of coffee and a hug to say, it may not have
Yes.
worked yet, but it will.
But it will. Yes.
And that is giving, right? Giving of compliments and giving of kindness, I think, are ways like we all have different things we can give and different abilities and bank accounts. And I just think living that lifestyle will benefit us all of humanity
Yes.
in so many rich ways. And it is true, people who are generous live longer. They just do. There's a mindset and there's something anecdotally, but also actuarially,
Mhm.
that will say people who give receive riches and they live longer. And so I love that we're talking about this. I
And we
don't think
didn't
it's a
plan to talk about this. This has just
no,
happened
it's
organically. This is
it's just
amazing.
organically because I think our hearts as humans, we stir, right? We're
Yep.
trying to think, what is our purpose? What were we created to do? How am I supposed to be living? And no way, one way is more worthy or relevant
No,
than the other.
no,
I think we
absolutely
have to
not.
decide as we wrestle as a family, like what is our mission? What are our vision and values? And sometimes those change, right? As our kids are aging, things have changed. And as we go through life experiences, new things come on and mean more to us. And that's good. We're evolving. And even at 48, this old dog can learn new things.
Well, you just
And
thought you were done learning, and God's like, "No, you're good," and
he's like, hey,
you're doing
girl.
that. Yep.
And I get a lot of hey, girls. And I've learned
Yeah.
never to question. I've had some challenging experiences these past 2 years, and my girls were in a really bad rollover. And,
Wow.
thank the Lord they walked away unscathed. But lots of things that could have me questioning and just asking why me or this isn't fair, like I hate that, this like fairness statement in itself. But I had to really sit in it and say, what is the purpose of the pain? What is happening here? And I have come to realize God is not using this to define me, but
Nope.
to refine me,
Very
to
fine.
refine my life in order to better glorify him and to spend the days, and they are a treasure, whatever I have left, to be able to give whatever it is God's calling me to give in a way that is like hands open, right? And I don't know what that next road or chapter looks like, Nick. I'm really excited for you know, God, you've called us home, and I mean home to this community of my husband's.
Yeah.
I know that there's a purpose and a design for it, and we're going to be here a long time. So 2 years is just barely scratching the top layer of what it is we're doing. Our kids are going to leave. I don't know what will define their life and what their destinies are, but my husband and I get to wrestle with what are we going to write in these chapters and how
Yeah.
many pages do we have left? Only, the great creator knows our story, but um I'm excited to pick up that pen figuratively and literally and get to work and do it for the good of all, not just the good of my family, but the good of all.
Yeah, absolutely. That's I think part of evolving,
Yeah.
because who I am now is not who I was even 5 years ago. And who I was 5 years ago is not who I was 5 years before that. And so people listening are probably gonna be like, "Oh, here he goes again." But I often say peaks and valleys.
Yeah.
In fact, maybe I'm writing another book, so maybe I'll call it Peaks and Valleys. That's really what I feel like life's about. You don't when I get to the peak, I'm always looking behind me saying, who can I help up to here? How can I
Yeah.
get them up here?
Bring 'em up.
But yeah, but then we go back down into the valleys and we're like, oh, here we go again. And
Yeah.
sometimes God throws a boulder or two at me to get my attention on the way down. And then
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I got you.
Yeah.
I
I missed
know.
the pebbles, so thanks
Yeah,
for
yeah,
hitting me with the
yeah,
boulder.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, the pebbles I would have been like, oh, that nothing. But when you get knocked with a boulder or two, and then you dust yourself up, and you're like, oh, okay, so we're not
Yeah.
done climbing. You're gonna make me climb that. Uh, God, I don't know how I'm gonna climb that. I really don't. But it's like, well, don't worry. This is gonna be a good valley for you to learn in, and the tools I give
Yeah.
you in this valley are gonna be different than the tools I gave you in the valley previous. And the tools I leave you with here, along with the other tools that I have given you over the last few valleys that you've been in, are going to prepare you to get to the top of there. And guess what? When you get to the top of there, we're not going to celebrate too long
Yeah.
because
Because
there's
it's
going
like
to
a
be
roller
another
coaster.
valley again.
You're back down. And
Yep.
I think people are put in our lives to help us with both the peaks and the valleys, right? Like understanding. And some people are their time in our lives are limited,
Oh, yeah.
or it's just, for a short season. And I
Yep.
think honoring that and recognizing that comes with age. And that's a beautiful place to have. I've made friends wherever I go, in the rural communities and the urban and in the works that I do in the organizations. And I'm grateful for each of them. And they've added to my life, and I hope I've added to theirs. And I hope they all call me friend and know that they can call me, right? Like we're here to support each other as we wrestle through, these peaks and valleys. And God designed us to do life together in community, and
Right.
community doesn't just mean next door neighbors. I mean, that's
No.
a very like literal definition, but it also means within the scope of what it is we do and dream and bringing along one another.
I think with social media, community is vastly different now because your
Broad
community.
application.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And now that we have great things like we can Zoom and have a podcast and we can
Right.
Zoom and talk, it makes it a lot easier to be able to have community with people that you may not have had community with before.
I
Um,
know, like take us for example.
yeah.
You're in Texas, I'm in Pony. We've had no shared life experiences. After
No.
today we have, but
Yeah.
now we'll say, remember that
Yeah.
we've had that,
Exactly.
Nick. And then that's a foundation for us to build on. If somebody in your network needs what I have or vice versa, now we've got the shared experience in which to
Exactly.
connect and do that. And so I don't think anything's by chance. I really
No.
don't. I
No.
think we are put in each other's lives for purpose, and there is a reason, and we don't always know when or how. And I guess that's what makes life just so tremendously precious.
I think that's what makes it, yeah. And I think that's what also keeps it interesting too, because
Yeah.
you're right. There's a lot of times I've had people that have been in my life and I'm like, oh, this person's going to be in my life forever. It's like, and then all of a sudden, 2 years later, they're out of your life and you're like,
Right.
well, what happened? Like, I thought we were besties
Yeah.
or I thought you were going to be that person that walked the line, or I was going to walk alongside of you
Yeah.
and then things happen. But then you look back and you're like, God had me there for them during that period of time, or God had that person there for me during that period of
Yeah.
time.
I have a
So,
bunch of women that I used to work out. I used to lift weights. I won't even flex right now because it's
same. I
embarrassing.
used to bodybuild. I don't anymore.
Right. So in my mid 40s, I knew, right, I want to have this healthy lifestyle. So I'm like, I need to invest in a trainer. And I had this wonderful trainer, Ryan Joray in Billings. And it was women's weightlifting. It was a women's weightlifting class in the vault at Granite. And So it was a cohort of women that's at 6 a.m., 4 days a week I did life with, people I had never known before.
Yep.
And they became really big champions in my
Yep.
life and mine and theirs, right? We're lifting heavy weights. We're insecure. We're not sure how to like make this work. And the other week, I haven't been part of this group now for 2 years because I'm obviously out here and I haven't been lifting other than like, sometimes hay bales, and we're building a house. So it's like shingles and concrete slabs, but not enough to like stay fit. Um, I get a message from Ryan just out of the blue, right? Like, I haven't been paying him to train me for 2 years. He's still a friend and somebody who invests in me. And he said, I just want to relay a message. There's a woman in this women's weights class. Your paths never crossed, but she follows you on social media. And she was saying how inspirational you are, but that
Yeah.
you stand up, like you advocate and you wrestle with some tough topics. And she was just really expressing how grateful she was for you. That message in itself was beautiful, but that Ryan took the time to then share that with me. And it was on a day when I was really struggling, right? Like you said, like grief, I'm walking out this grief process, losing my dad and having conversations with him and wrestling with things and my identity and what is my meaning and value. And my meaning is not in compliments, my worth is not in that. But having her words to Ryan relayed to me at that moment was like salve to my soul. It really was like, Ryan, I don't know who this woman is, but please thank her. And it gave me encouragement that what I say and do does matter and it's adding value. And I want to be careful with the words I use and how and when I use them, and just that we're all connected. And I'm glad that I've inspired somebody, because so many women in that room lifting heavy things inspired me too. And we were lifting
Mhm.
boulders, heavy ones, but really metaphorical ones in our lives of
Sure.
trying to be the best mom and grandma and sister and daughter, and wrestling around with things in between sets when we'd stop breathing heavy and sometimes cry about something personal.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that was community.
Yep.
And I never would have thought that these women in a gym would add so much value and me to them. And you just never know what group of people are going to hold you in those peaks and valleys. So, back to that reference, and we call it roses and thorns. I have a friend who calls it the roses and thorns,
I
which is a
love
beautiful
that.
analogy that they
Yeah.
mix together to create a beautiful floral masterpiece, if we're willing to see it that way. So, Nick, you've got me all excited again and like thinking about, like it's inspiring. This is a really great platform that you're creating.
Well, thank you. And honestly, I mean, 9 months ago, I had no idea I was even going to do a podcast. It hadn't even crossed my mind. And, it's like, oh, I mean, I guess I could do that. But it was like, and one morning, my mom got up and we were having a conversation. And it was like, she was like, I feel if your dad was here, your dad would be telling you this. And then it was just like, okay,
Yeah.
okay. I'm doing this. And then everybody's like, a podcast? I'm like, hey, I don't know where it's gonna lead, but I'm gonna have fun doing it. And that's been the fun part, is because I get to jump on with people that I do know. I also get to jump on with people I don't know. And the opportunities for just um communicating, and the opportunities for just speaking into somebody's life, or having them speak in, vice versa, or to have somebody listen and just say, hey, I was listening to so and so and I was really inspired by what they had to say. That's amazing. And for me, it's the whole purpose is, with this podcast and with this lifestyle brand, one person, if I can change one person, it's all worth it. If
Yeah.
I can help one person, it's all worth it. If I can leave one person to Christ, it's more than all worth it. And my whole life has been
Yeah.
worth it at that point. So, um,
And I think the magic is, Nick, you may never know who or when you've impacted somebody. We just don't know. And I think, the takeaway from my dad's passing is how many people reached out to share stories about him, his stories of impact. And so someday you and I will leave, and there will be people reaching out to our children, to our spouses, and saying, it was this one time Nick said, or Nick did, or he
mhm.
had a guest and this happened. And I hope we know our stories of impact while we're living. I would encourage people listening today, for those people who have impacted you, tell them. I mean, and you can't tell them enough, and you can't tell them soon enough. So, I mean, I
Yes.
think there's something vulnerable about reaching out and saying, you've impacted my life. But as those messages were pouring in about my dad, I felt this deep, I mean, it's the Holy Spirit telling me, reach out to those teachers who literally encouraged me with my writing, right? Encouraged me. I never knew I would write on social media, right? Like, I dreamed one day. I was an English major to begin with. I thought I'd pen a novel, and I thought somehow I'd be in journalism and I'd be the Barbara Walters. Probably nobody listening remembers who Barbara Walters was, but to me,
I
she was
do.
everything.
Yeah.
She was the pinnacle of what I wanted to be. I didn't become her, but now there's other platforms where I feel I'm telling stories. I'm wrestling with situations that I think matter. And I'm reaching back out to people to say, you've impacted my life positively. So Nick, maybe today after, we're done in these following weeks, people will be sharing and reaching out to people who have stewarded their life somehow. And won't that be just this most joyous, intrinsic feeling that
Absolutely.
it's a
Absolutely.
dividend
It
that's not
is.
on our
No,
statement balance,
no,
right?
no.
It's a life dividend.
It's a life dividend. Absolutely. And then it also does a lot for you too, because you're like, wow. Like you said, we may not know our true impact, but when you hear from
Right.
somebody that you did, it's like, okay, it's reassurance. And I think sometimes it's God reassuring us
Yes.
through words from somebody else that you are doing what I asked you to do, or you keep doing it because that's where I want you to go.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So on a on another note, what does Heather do to unwind? Because you pour into so many other people, and you're a mom, you have your kids, your
Yeah.
community. So what are your favorite things to do to unwind?
Yeah. I really love to walk. I
Okay.
really do. So
Not run,
taking long,
not run.
I used to love to run, but I've aged out of that, right? Like that's why I say like I'm a fast talker and a slow walker or a
Yes.
slow runner. Fast talker, slow walker. I love walking. It allows my creativity. It's like I don't listen to a podcast or I don't listen to anything when I'm walking. I'm just kind of and I feel like that's when I hear from the Lord. I feel like creativity sparks. I feel like I process things and I just really enjoy that.
Yeah.
I also love travel.
Hmm.
It ignites me in a way that um, I wish I would have invested in earlier in my life. I really wish I would have had some of those more bold experiences. But recently, I traveled to Spain. I got to enjoy many, many aspects, all the way from Segovia, which is a very small rural part, to Madrid and Barcelona. And then we went into
Oh,
San Sebastian to eat
wow.
the cheesecake and to see the soccer games. And um, I was hooked. And I've got an upcoming trip to Croatia and the Amalfi
Mm,
Coast.
mm.
And I'm doing that with, in part, many, many strangers, women I don't know. I only know 3. And of the 18, many of them are unknown to me. We're in a text group. I don't even know their names. And I am completely okay with that.
I love it.
And then the thing that helps me unwind is also the preparation and the joy that comes from planning. And so leading into my 50th birthday, I'm going to walk the Camino Trail. I think I'm going to do the Portugal side, and I am going to experience a pilgrimage. I hope for somewhere 4 to 6 weeks, and I would love for others to join me. But if it is solo, it is solo. And I am following a blogger right now that's doing it during the Holy Week, also while the Pope died. He's a prolific writer, and I almost want to go now. Like I just want to kind of hit
Great.
like delete Nick. I'm hanging up. I'm
That's it.
leaving.
I'm on my plane. I'm headed
I
out.
got
That's
my backpack with
awesome.
my 4 changes of
Oh,
clothes, and that's all I need. But
love that.
travel fills my soul, seeing other cultures,
Yes.
um, experiencing music I've never heard, food I've never
Ooh,
tasted,
yes.
languages
Oh,
that make no sense to me other than I know they're beautiful. Um, that's what I love. And honestly, spending time with my kids and my husband. We live in a busy world. Um, to sit down and have dinner with them, to hear them giggle. We spend a lot of time in the car. So honestly, I like driving, and I like driving with one of my daughters next to me because it's when they share the most and I learn the most. And I'm not joking when I say I put roughly 30,000 miles on my car last year between work and sports and the school they attend. We really do live in our car, but I find it so comforting. Like the world is happening, but life is happening in this little 4-door Mazda of ours. And um, wisdom is exchanged. I have 2 very insightful and introspective, tender-hearted girls that remind me and sometimes temper me down a bit. I can be opinionated, just a compassionate and a little volatile at times. And they remind me of God's grace and love,
Yeah.
and they help keep me really grounded. And I'm fortunate to be married to a remarkable man that has loved me so well. He's worn off some of my sharp edges. I still have some, but he's loved me through it all. My dad always said, the most important decision you'll ever make, and it wasn't about what I studied or what I did with my life. He said it will be who you marry, and he was not
Made your
wrong.
life with. Yep. Yeah. And how long
Yeah.
have you both been married?
We're approaching 20. We'll celebrate our 20th anniversary this
Awesome.
October, and I have
Awesome.
something special in mind that I can't share, but I just really want to recognize marriage is peaks and valleys, roses and
Oh,
thorns.
oh yes. Yes, it
It
is.
takes a lot of people to keep a marriage healthy and whole. And I'm grateful for all of those friends and family that have loved us and our marriage journey. And, that's probably something I'm most proud of is that I have this wonderful marriage to a man that I adore. And we've raised what I think are two pretty special young women that are going to, I hope, fly and do amazing things,
Changed
but
the
come
world.
home and visit. And
Yes. Yes.
a career working in an industry that I think is really honorable. And the mission of the Montana Community Foundation is something that just, could be tattooed on my heart. That's how much I really resonate with it. And, just in these final chapters of my life, being real intentional, Nick. I don't relax much. You probably get that sense. I don't let a lot of grass grow. And it's something I'm trying to be cognizant of, just being still in the moment,
Yes.
but um, spending those moments intentionally, whether that be travel,
Yes.
family,
Yes.
or with the people that I just adore.
I'm
Yeah.
totally the same. It's hard to sit still. It's hard to sit still.
Yeah.
Even as I have literally, and you can't see my desk, but I have probably 15 post-it notes with different
Yeah.
things that
Me too, brother.
well, the things, they're either ideas or, oh, I want to
Yeah.
talk about that in my next book, or I need to do this, or I need to do that. And it's not anything that's pressing. It's just stuff that when I have time, I need to
Yeah.
do it. And here I am looking at some of this stuff. And then it's like, I really want to start my second book right now. And so
Yeah.
it's always kind of like, it's like sitting still and taking time and,
Yeah.
being present with your family and like you said, being more intentional with time, because that's a catalyst for me right now. Is you could ask Warren Buffett, you could ask Elon Musk. I know that's kind of not trying to be political, but I'm just saying these are
Yeah.
two of the richest people in the world. And you
Right.
could specifically ask Warren Buffett because he's like 93 or 94. What's the one thing he wish he could buy? He's got all the money. He can buy
Yeah.
anything. And you know what he would probably tell you?
Time.
Time. And he can't buy it. He can't
I
buy
can't
it. And
say.
so that's why I feel so passionate about just helping others get out of their own way, because I know what it's like to be able to be there for all of my kids' stuff when I want to be.
Me
I know what
too.
it's like to not have to miss out. I know what it's like to be able to have weekly dates with my wife during lunch while the kids are at school, and
Yeah.
we can go to a restaurant and have a lunch together when it's just her and I. I'm able to do things like that because I've been blessed to create a life that I don't have to, that I got out of my own way,
Yeah.
and I allowed my staff to essentially kick me out of the building and
86 you.
yeah, and then buy out a portion of me, and now I'm just I'm extremely blessed to be where we're at. And yeah, it may not be where I thought I'd be a year ago or 2 years ago, but I wouldn't change it because I think where I'm going is going to be far more amazing than anything I could have expected. And
And
so
you
I'm
could have
excited.
ever built yourself. Yeah. I
Exactly,
think,
exactly.
yeah, I think that's the exciting point. If there's anything, is the curiosity and the unknown should have us all excited, right?
Yes.
Like,
Well,
of what's to come.
exactly. Like you in travel, you want to go do stuff that you want to take yourself out of your comfort zone. You want to experience stuff. And I think I love to travel too. And that's what I love. I love going in and seeing what people are about. The the culture, what defines them, what kind of music, the food. And I'm not going
Yeah.
to try all the food. There's some weird
Yeah.
stuff, and I'm just, I
Oh
know, I'm,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's when you can do that kind of stuff and you can travel, and that's, and I'm not saying for people that are listening, well, you need to give up everything you own, and what I'm saying is be more intentional with what you have, be more resourceful with what you have. If you're a business owner and you want to have more time, you find ways to get more time so you can do things, because at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, you're on your deathbed. The one thing you're not going to be is you're not going to be like, boy, I have $10 million in the bank. But you know what? I never
I
got
never
to do.
deployed it.
Yeah, I never. Yeah, I would rather say, you know what? I lived a life full of memories. I gave my friends memories, family memories. Everybody is. I gave generously, and I have no regrets. And
No regrets.
and
Yeah.
and I think that you're about what your philanthropy does is challenge people to do things that are
Yeah.
different, and really find that happiness that does come from giving. And it's not, I'm not like, okay, give 10% to your church. If you tithe, that's amazing, right? I'm talking about though just being generous in general, because it's such a
Yeah.
good feeling.
It's life changing.
It
And you
is.
know when you're in the presence of a generous person and when you're not.
Oh
You
yeah.
just
Oh yeah.
really do.
Oh yeah.
The energy is different. It just
Oh
hits
yes, it
different.
is. It
So
does. It
let's
does.
all be generous.
Yeah. What a different world it would be if we were all generous, you know?
Yeah.
Um, well, Heather, I have appreciated our times here.
Me too.
This has been great conversation. I know that you are a busy person that's always go go go. So I'm glad that we were able to set some time aside to do this. And I'm gonna love to have you back on, because you're inspirational to a lot of people.
Thank
And I
you.
think that that's what drew me to you, is just you inspire me because of what you do, what you do already. You live out in you challenge yourself, you moving to where you're out in the I don't want to say middle of nowhere, you're out in the small town, you're in the smaller
Yeah.
communities,
I'm in it.
you're in it. And
I'm
I
in the
think I
I'm
think
in the fields.
you are, and it's just inspiring to see you, and then to see your passion and to see your face glow when you talk about what you do. I have a lot of guests on, and they talk about, oh, I'm passionate and stuff, but I think just even through this Zoom call, or podcast call, I guess is, but I can feel the passion come through, and I really hope our listeners can too. And so,
Me too.
I know if they're not friends of yours and they're friends of mine, they can find you on social media. You're on Facebook. You're also you're on Instagram too, correct?
I'm on Instagram and I'm
Okay.
on LinkedIn. And so
LinkedIn.
depending on where I'm posting, a lot of similar messages, but there's also some differences and things that I, challenge the business professionals to consider. And I hope I can be of encouragement. If anyone wants to reach out to me, I love conversations. There are no strangers, just friends I have not met yet.
Absolutely. I love that saying. I really do. Well, I love to leave my podcasters with two different sayings before I leave. And the first one is love everyone always, which it is so apparent you do that and you do it so well. Just you pour into so many people's lives, and that is amazing. And it is very, very easy to see you doing God's work. And I just love that. And then the other thing is, may the best of your past be the worst of your future.
Mm.
And I really hope that these peaks and valleys that are ahead of you and for me, that our paths do cross multiple times again, because
Me too.
you're just a wonderful person. And if I need inspiration, I know who I need to reach out to, because you're just inspiring, very
Well, you filled my cup today too. Thank you. This is reciprocal, symbiotic.
Well, we're going to have you on again, Heather, and I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Nick.